Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by Ultimate Fighter Live cast member James Vick. James, how are you?
I'm doing good.
James, it's been a while since we've seen you. We haven't seen you fight since the show. What have you been up to?
A lot of different stuff, actually. I was training for a while. Everything was going good, and I was, getting ready to, get a fight, call the UFC, get everything ready, and then I messed my shoulder up again. And that probably happened around end of October, and it just kept getting worse, and I ended up having to have surgery on it, actually.
Mm-hmm. Now, this shoulder injury, was this from the show, or was this from after?
Well, I think it was, a little bit of both. I've had surgery before on the same shoulder about 4.5 years ago, and it just, over the last year, it progressively started getting worse again, and on the show it gave me a little bit of problems, and then it just kept getting worse, and eventually got to the point where I couldn't even practice anymore, and I had to go to get it fixed.
Mm-hmm. Right now, are you training full go, or right now are you kind of slowly working back into it, or are you not training at all, you're just doing rehab? What exactly are we looking at training wise?
Well, I'm just now getting back into it. I should get released hopefully to go 100%. I'm training hard and see how it feels within the next 2 weeks. So right now I'm just, I'm probably still going harder than I should, but that's kind of my problem. I'm not going to lie, I've been injured quite a bit. I think it's a lot of it goes, it's my fault for overtraining too much sometimes. And in the intro there, I gave you the title of Ultimate Fighter cast member because I wasn't sure if you are a UFC lightweight. Do you have a UFC contract? Yes, sir. Actually, the UFC is the one that, paid for the surgery and all the physical therapy and stuff, and I keep in contact with Joe Silva, and he pretty much just told me as soon as I get healthy, let him know, and he'll put me on a card.
I see. And now, with this injury and not fighting for a while, even though you did have a lot of fights in the house, but with this injury and being out so long, how much has it affected, your growth as a fighter? Because you're really a very young guy in the sport, only 4 fights professionally that, are in your record, but how much has this layoff stunted your growth as a mixed martial artist? Well,
actually, I would say it kind of helped it. Because actually before I did get hurt, I had a good 5 or 6 months of training before I actually got injured. And I know it's been a while, and it'll end up being, a year that I haven't fought by the time I do get healthy. But the injury really set me back, about 3.5 months training time, which is a long time, but during that time period, I've really been, I study fighting a lot, and I've been, reading success books and, just really getting my mind stronger. And with the stuff I learned right after the show, I actually went to Kent Springs, Maryland, to Willard Irvin's camp. And, I know he's getting a lot of criticism and having problems right now with certain stuff, but, the training experience I had there was amazing. And, I worked with a lot of really high-level jiu-jitsu guys, and I worked with Dutch Muay Thai coach from Holland, and, my game really is way better than it was this time last year.
And now, where are you training at right now? You're back home in Texas, obviously. Where are you training at, and who are you working with?
Well, I train back home. I train in a few different gyms. My head coach here is Dolan Lamb. It's Phoenix Mixed Martial Arts Academy. And then, I still train at Genesis Jiu-Jitsu here. And I train, probably like 4 or 5 different spots here. I train sometimes with Team Takedown, Johnny Hendricks and Mark Lehman. I train with them some too, but right now, I'm just now getting back into training, so hopefully within the next couple of weeks I can start, picking everything up. See how my shoulder feels.
You mentioned earlier that you've been in talks with Joe Silva, you keep in contact with him, but I got to ask you, with all these cuts that the UFC's got going on right now, and they said that they're going to cut 100 more fighters, in the back of your mind, does that kind of worry you a little bit, that, hey, if I don't, get back in there real quick, they might let me go before I even get an opportunity?
Absolutely. I actually spoke to Joe Silva right before I decided to have a surgery, and I asked him, I straight up asked him, which of course this was before the cuts that just happened, but I asked him, I said, if I get the surgery, you're going to cut me, because if I have to, I'll fight hurt before I lose my opportunity, or without even getting an opportunity. And he said, no, we got plenty of people in the weight class, go get fixed, and get healthy and then come talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I know, I mean, I'm not cut yet, and I'm just praying for the best, and I know that I got to perform when I fight, and I got to win. I got to get a win, and I got to put on a show. So I don't want to deal with those guys. It's one and done, and kicked out of the UFC.
Mm-hmm. You were in a pretty weird situation there because I think you were one of 3 or 4 guys from that season that didn't get to fight in the finale. You were in a weird spot because had you won that fight, you would have been in the finale fighting for the 6-figure contract. You ended up losing that fight and were unable to. So you were kind of in a weird spot because if you didn't make it as far as you did, you would have fought in the finale. But at the same time, if you won that fight, you would have been there anyways. In your mind, did your mind ever play tricks on you where you kind of question yourself, hey, I kind of wish I didn't make it this far? Is that something that ever crossed your mind or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It is, especially when, I mean, first off, I was never happy with where I was at, To me, second place means you're the best loser. So it doesn't matter if I got, if I lost the first round or I lost in the semifinals, I still lost to me, and that's just the philosophy I have. But it does, it did kind of bother me a lot, that I've seen guys that I beat turn around in the finale and make, 15 or 20 grand, and I'm still broke, because I made it farther along than them, and then, they got to fight the finale and I didn't, but at the same time, I can't blame anyone but myself. I lost and I should have won. I was winning the fight and I blew it. I blew my opportunity, and, when I get to the opportunity again, I promise I'm not going to blow it.
Mm-hmm. And now, James, I'm just curious. I wanted to ask you about that experience on The Ultimate Fighter. Was it a good experience? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, it was. It's crazy how I hear these guys say, "Oh, it's so horrible. I would never go back." I would never go back there. Me personally, I'll go back in a heartbeat. If they call me today, I'd get back on that show. First off, that was the first time that I've ever got to practice full time, and I've never had a job, and I've never, I've always worked full time, and then tried to be a fighter, on top of that, which is very hard to do, especially if you're competing at the UFC level. So for me, it was the greatest experience of my life, and then I'm so glad that grateful that I was on the live season where we was there for 3 months. Even though 3 months seemed like eternity, I got 3 months of full time training that I'd never had in my life, and I came out a completely different fighter.
Mm-hmm. What's the best part and what's the worst part about living in the Tough House?
Well, the best part is, to me, it was training full time. It was just a blessing for me to be able to train full time. And then, you're one of eight guys on your team, and then you also have 5 coaches per 8 guys, so you're getting a lot of one-on-one coaching. And if you lose basically on a show like that, especially for the time period we were on it for 3 months, you can't blame anyone but yourself, because you're getting one-on-one coaching a lot with as many coaches as they have there, and they're all high-level coaches. And then, the worst part, of course, was the dieting. That was really bad, having to cut weight that many times in a row like that. It was miserable, especially, for me, because I'm a really big lightweight. And then, no contact with your mom or no girls, or family members or anything like that. All that was pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. And now, to get into the house, you had to fight a 1-round, 5-minute fight, basically to determine everything. It was just a very short fight to get in there. Not a lot of time to work. How difficult was that for that one fight, and especially not knowing who you're going to fight? It was just a random draw. How difficult was that?
It was very difficult because you didn't know what kind of game plan you would have until the day before we fought. That's who you knew who we fought. Mm-hmm. But for me, I think that style favored me more than a lot of people because, first off, they paired me up with Joe Silva's number 2 pick out of the 32 guys. Mm-hmm. The guy I beat was Joe Silva's number second. He was their second pick out of all 32 guys.
Right.
So for me, that format for me didn't bother me as bad because for one thing, I came from amateur boxing, and we don't know who we fight till the day of the weigh-in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you weigh in that day, and that's who you're fighting. So you don't, like in amateur boxing, there's no going on YouTube and scouting a guy. You don't know who you're fighting. You're just fighting whoever shows up in your weight class. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of that helped me out with my nervousness, and my nerves and everything was out of control. But it was still hard, just depending on the style. The guy I had to fight was a wrestler, and all he did the whole 5 minutes was try to take me down. So it was difficult.
Mm. I talked to Darren Cruikshank, the fighter you faced in the first round when you made it into the house, and he said something that was very difficult for him. Taking nothing away from you, he was very respectful. You were the better man that day. He had nothing bad to say about you, but he said that about that fight against you was that he didn't have a good feel for his coaches. He was only there, working with them very, very few times, not really getting a good feel for the coaches. When you were picked to Team Cruz and they decided that you were going to be the first fight in the house, how were you able to, kind of gel with the coaches, or was it, a very difficult thing for you to kind of get acclimated to their system and all that, and then having to fight real quick? Was it difficult for you as well?
Yeah, it was. It was very difficult for me too. First of all, you're in an environment you don't know anyone there, and then you're stuck living with people. You're dealing with these same people every day, and it was very hard for me too, because I just came off, as all of us did, just come off a weight cut, the week before. We had to turn around and cut weight again, 3 days later, which was very hard. When I walk around with 175, 180 pounds now. And so that was hard, and it was hard, and Derek Cruikshank's a great fighter. I think he really showcased that, his last fight against Henry Martinez. He looked like, I guess his nickname is the Detroit Superstar.
Right.
He looked like a superstar.
Right.
And it was a very good fight, and I think the difference between me and that guy was, first of all, 6'3". 6'3" in a lightweight is a problem for a lot of people. And I realize that, and I feel like I'm really getting better at learning how to use my body type now. And Derek Cruikshank's a very good fighter, and I caught him with a good shot as he came in, and it could have happened the other way. That's just the way it played out.
Mm-hmm. One thing about that fight is the finish. Now, from some angles, it looks like you were ready to throw a roundhouse kick to the head, and he just dove in there, and you ended up catching him with the knee. Were you trying to throw a kick, or was it the knee you were trying to throw, and that's what ended up landing?
Well, I started to throw the kick. I threw a left hook, and I was expecting him to back up, and then I was going to try to catch him with the kick from around. But I seen him change levels, so I never brought the rest of my foot and my shin up. I just brought the knee straight up, and it clipped him right on the chin. And I expected to hit him with the knee, but I didn't expect to land at that flush. I expected to hit him enough, and I was going to try to, get my hips back so he couldn't. I figured, he was going to drive forward real hard to that takedown. So I figured, honestly, I thought that the knee was going to hit him like in the shoulder or the collarbone area, and then I was going to be able to sprawl back and get my hips back, but it hit him flush on his chin, and, it caught him. Mm-hmm.
Now, your fight against Michael Chiesa in the semifinals, I was kind of disappointed that was the semifinal matchup, because in my opinion, I felt like that was the real final, because Chiesa, he had the storyline with, his father passing away, and, he showed great mental toughness to, go back into the house and make it that far. And then on your end, like you mentioned, when you fought Dakota Cochran, Joe Silva's number 2 pick for the show, Darren Cruikshank, who in the first couple minutes of that round was getting the better of you, I would say, and then Joe Proctor, who you beat in the quarterfinal. He had a very impressive finish against Chris Tickle. It just seemed like you were the underdog going through that the entire way. I would have liked to have seen that be the final. In your opinion, was that the true final?
No, I wouldn't say that, because it's the tournament format. The tournament format is, is something, that honestly you could have that tournament 16 times and have 16 different winners. Mm-hmm. The way that tournament format is, you're one injury away from being out of the competition. Everyone's not healthy. I think to me, honestly, one of the best guys in the house that I trained with was Miles Jury. I thought that he got kind of robbed, in that decision against Iaquinta, and just from training with him, he was the most technically sound and most experienced technically, as far as gym time there, and he ended up losing, a split decision, and then he was stuck out to the finals, So, Iaquinta was very mentally tough. He was really injured going into that fight with Chiesa. Him and Vince Pichel had a war, So I would say that was that should have been the finals. But, in my mind, I was never the underdog. The way they edit the show, sometimes it's not always how it is.
Sure.
And, they edited like it makes me look very good, and I really appreciate it. But they made it look like I didn't know anything when I got there. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking all the time, how do you think I got here? Mm-hmm. It's not because I was lucky. Lucky people don't repeatedly, continue winning.
Right.
You know, they win once or twice, then we'll just keep winning. And in my mind, that's what I always told them. Every time they would interview me, they would ask me, you know, how does it feel to be an underdog? And I would tell them every time I said, who's the underdog? You know, in my mind, you know, I'm always the favorite to win. Mm-hmm. And if I thought I was going to lose, I wouldn't be here. You know, so in my mind, you know, I never thought I was going to lose. I always thought I was going to win.
Mm-hmm. You were a member of Dominic Cruz's team for the season. How much did you learn from working with Dominic Cruz and all of his coaches? And do you feel that you would have got the same type of training had you worked with Uriah Faber and his team? Do you feel that you would have benefited regardless of who your coach was?
Well, I think that we both would have gotten good training, but I think for me, I benefited more from being on Dominic Cruz's team.
Right.
Simply because of the body type that I have. I think that, you know, I got to work with, you know, Master Lloyd Irvin. You know, he's one of the best jiu-jitsu coaches in the world, and he's you know, he's not just a jiu-jitsu coach, he's a jiu-jitsu coach for MMA, and he really, you know, shows you how to use your body type, and he has the same similar build as me. You know, I got to work with Phil Davis, who's very tall. I had to work with Dominic Cruz, you know, who's very tall for their weight classes. So I got to work with guys that have a similar body frame as me, whereas all the guys on Uriah Faber's coaching staff were all shorter guys. You know, would they been able to teach me a lot? I think so, but I think just beneficially for me, my body type, you know, being on Dominic Cruz's team was the best for me. Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned you trained with Lloyd Irvin after the show. Anyone else you kept in contact with from the show?
Well, from the show, I went and stayed a week with Justin Lawrence in St. Louis, and I sparred with him before his last fights, and then I still text some of the guys and talk to them, but mostly I just kind of stuck to myself and went up to Lloyd Irvin's camp up there, and I got to work with Mike Van Arsdale for a little bit. Master Lloyd flew him in, and then went to the Highland with Dutch Muay Thai coach, and Master Lloyd has a judo Olympian that coaches up there also, so I got some really good training right there at that one facility. Mm-hmm.
And now, with this layoff, you're currently on injury and all. If you're not fighting, you're not getting paid. So, do you work a second job? How are you able to support yourself? Just curious.
Yes, I'm a bouncer and a manager at a nightclub, actually, and I worked here off and on for about 2.5 years. So, and the general manager is my roommate, so he's like my best friend. So I get to come and go as I please. So it's real beneficial to me. I've been loyal to them. So now that I'm having problems, they're loyal to me. So I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And now, James, last question: your nickname. How did you get your nickname, the Texecutioner?
Okay, well, actually, before I went on the show, my fight name was the Executioner, because it's after Bernard Hopkins, who's my favorite boxer of all time. I'm really a big fan of Bernard Hopkins and, the lifestyle he lives as a fighter, and I just love how much he loves being a fighter. He's 48 years old, just won a world title, and he's so passionate, about still never lost his drive and his passion for fighting at that age, and it just really amazes me. Mm-hmm. And so I had the name Executioner, and then when I got in the house, I became real good friends with Sam Cecilia, and he nicknamed me the Texecutioner. So then I just kind of kept the name from there, and decided to make that my permanent name, fight name, just because I'm from Texas, and I take pride in being from Texas, and it goes good with my name, so I really liked it.
Well, interesting. Now, James, I'm not sure if you have any sponsors, but if you do, are there any that you would like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Well, actually, I don't really have any sponsors right now, until I get a fight book, because
sure.
I don't have a manager. I'm kind of choosing not to hire one, so I'm doing stuff on my own.
Sure.
So, but I would like to thank all the coaches that I've worked with. Coach Derwin Lamb, Tony Albert from Genesis Jiu-Jitsu, Master Lloyd Irvin, all the guys from Team Lloyd Irvin, Jared Kemp from Weatherford Boxing Team, and my mom and dad, they raised me right, and I feel like, I really turned out good because of, discipline that I've had, throughout the years, and, I just want to thank all my friends and family that are close to me.
Mm-hmm. James, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.